one version that almost nobody knows about is 100% correct. There are so many translations of the Bible, and usually they say the same thing, but sometimes they don't. So how are we supposed to know which version to pick? There's actually one correct version of the Bible, and I spent years searching for it without finding it, until Jesus revealed to me which version is actually fully correct. I wondered which version is the most accurate and read many of them interchangeably. And I came to the realization, like most Christians, that there is no correct version. But that's not the end of the story. I kept searching and finding Christ, and I kind of left the question of which Bible is the best in the past. I just figured there was none. And then one day, when I was sitting on the bathroom, just scrolling YouTube, there was a video, here's the thumbnail, and it just showed a horrible looking Bible. And the voice of Jesus whispered to me, that version of the Bible is correct. I didn't think anything of the video, I would have scrolled past, but because this voice of the Holy Spirit told me that is the correct Bible. This Bible has 666 branding all over it on the thumbnail. It was completely persecuted and blasphemed. But I watched the video and everything made sense. All of the criticism on this Bible in the video was naivety, and it actually was proving that this Bible was correct. Because the thing with every single translation of the Bible that you read is it's all translated by humans. It's all done by teams of translators, and humans make mistakes. But with this one specific version of the Bible, God Himself was able to help with the translation. And that's more impactful than any sort of human. So the story goes, Brian Simmons was met by Jesus in a room in 2009, and Jesus gave him the mission to make a new translation of the Bible called the Passion Translation. And with the help of the Holy Spirit, Brian Simmons by himself was able to translate the Passion Translation. This is the one way to counteract my belief that there is no possible correct translation, because humans can never make a perfect translation. We don't know exactly what Jesus meant, but with help of the Spirit, Brian Simmons was able to communicate that. So this story sounds like a fairy tale, and to be honest, that's why it's so heavily persecuted and why this Bible version is seen as blasphemous. But if you actually look a little bit closer, Jesus says that you can meet Jesus, and Jesus is supposed to give you a mission, the will of God. And for anyone who thinks Brian Simmons is crazy for having met Jesus in person, here's 3 different versions of the Bible that say that Jesus is supposed to meet you in person. Here's ESV, it says, "He who loves me will be loved by my Father, and I will love him and manifest myself to him." Here is the New Living Translation. It says, "And because they love me, my Father will love them, and I will love them and reveal myself to each of them." And finally, here's the Passion Translation, which says, "And I will passionately love him in return and will reveal myself to him." So Brian Simmons met Jesus, was given his will of God, and when you read the translation, everything starts to make sense. There's only subtle differences from other translations. For example, in the New International Version, on John chapter 1 verse 18, it says, "No one has ever seen God, but the one and only Son, who is himself God, and is in closest relationship with the Father." But that doesn't make sense, because if we go back to Exodus 33, "Then I will take away my hand, and you shall see my back, but my face shall not be seen." So Moses sees the back of God. Moses does see God, just not his face. So now let's take a look at John chapter 1 verse 18 in the Passion Translation. It says, "No one ever before gazed upon the full splendor of God, except his uniquely beloved Son, who is cherished by the Father and held close to his heart." This makes a lot more sense, because we see that no one has seen the full splendor of God, but Moses did see part of God, just not his full splendor or his face. But finally, certain words are used that we can understand in English that weren't translated properly for thousands of years. In Revelations chapter 1 verse 10, in the New Living Translation, we see, "It was the Lord's day and I was worshiping in the Spirit." Which to us, what does that mean? What is worshiping in the Spirit? It's kind of confusing. And it explains "or in spirit." But if we go to the Passion Translation, it says, "I was in the spirit realm on the Lord's day, and I heard behind me a loud voice." So we see in the spirit realm, and it lays out what the spirit realm actually means. And most people don't even know that the spirit realm exists because the modern translations in the Bible just don't explain what the spirit or the kingdom of heaven means. And if you want to know for yourself if this translation is real, I encourage you to pray to God and pray to the Spirit and ask what the real translation of the Bible is and if the Passion Translation is correct. Because I have full confidence because I ask the Spirit directly, but you yourselves too should ask the Spirit directly. But here's a bunch of verses that make way more sense in the Passion Translation than in the KJV or the NIV versions. Let's start with Matthew chapter 5. So verse 3 in the New International Version says, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." This is a little bit difficult to understand, and the Passion Translation kind of extends it and puts it into our modern understanding. So what happiness comes to you when you feel your spiritual poverty, for yours is the realm of heaven's kingdom. How enriched are you when persecuted for doing what is right, for then you will experience the realm of heaven's kingdom. How are we supposed to know that we're going to experience the realm of heaven's kingdom on earth? From the New International Version, it just says, "For theirs is the kingdom of heaven." And here in Genesis 1 verse 27, we see in the New International Version, "So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God he created them. Male and female he created them." But in the Passion Translation we see, "So God created man and woman and shaped them with his image inside them. In his own beautiful image he created his masterpiece." And you can find the Passion Translation for free on the Bible app. That's where I find it. Or just search up the Passion Translation on Google. And last thing, when you're ever reading the Bible, even with a perfect translation, you always should ask God to help you understand and comprehend. So seek and you will find, and you really have to look for the hidden meaning when you're reading. Good luck. Bye.